So the first thing I did is got some spray paint bottle lids and I chopped one of them in half, and then I glued two, probably 3/4 part of a hemisphere that I bought at the Dollar Tree onto those so that they ended up being a rounded cylinder part. And I just used hot glue for this, making sure to emphasize kind of the weld lines of this just to give it a really nice old, worn, reused and scrap look that everything in Fallout has, or most things in Fallout. And then I went through and glued this cone shape onto the end of the half cylinder, just using a old bottle cap as a guide for the middle of the cylinder. And I just used hot glue for this, also emphasizing the weld lines on the side. I got a little piece of pipe and wrapped some tape around it to make a tight fit. And then I cut some rings out of cardboard and used some hot glue to glue all of those down onto it. I also used some super glue because the tape didn't allow the super glue to fully like cure or harden or whatever until it touched the plastic, which it never did. So it wasn't a super tight bond until I used the super glue. I also glued a cone onto the end of the other super glue container. This cone was a little longer just to make up most of the body. And then I went through and used some hot glue to glue all of the pieces together. I ended up reinforcing this thing with a piece of pipe just to make sure all of it was sturdy and nothing fell apart. So if you guys need to do that, be sure to do that. If you're just doing it for display, you probably don't need to do that, but I wanted to carry this around and use it in a short film, so I ended up doing that. I cut some strips of cardboard that went about half the length of the body, and then I just cut these fin parts to shape, just cutting out a little rectangle out of them all and then bending them so that I could fit in that piece of cardboard so that it attached the two main parts of the grenade without bending the fins. And I just used some hot glue and a screw to attach these, using the screw on the top part to imitate the screw that holds it in the game. And then I went through and glued on some old spray paint can sprayer parts, just using some hot glue, also emphasizing the weld lines on that, just using some hot glue to bulk it up and to make sure that everything was solid on this, since I'm not sure how well this thing's gonna hold up when it gets hot here, because it gets hot in North Carolina as well as humid, and that just makes anything that's made of hot glue really prone to falling apart, even in an air-conditioned house. So if you live in an environment like this, be sure to check that out. I also made a little grenade detonator part and just glued that on. This is just some cardboard that I folded over itself and then cut out to the right shape, which is just a box with a little wire over the top of it. And I went through and painted the whole thing white. This thing literally took a whole can of white paint. So if you guys want white paint, be sure to buy a higher quality than the just cheap $1 white paint, because this stuff does not cover very well. I then went through and did a yellow wash over the whole thing to give it a really nice worn look, and as well as to give it a nice yellow look like aged white stuff typically has, or sun bleached white stuff has. And then I just went through and wiped away this white paint after I had put it on, just using an old rag of mine. This rag accidentally got some black paint on it, so I rubbed black paint on my white stuff, which is fine because I'm going to do a black wash. But if you guys don't want to do that, make sure to check the article that you're using to wipe to make sure that it doesn't have anything on it. I then went through and did a black wash, like I said earlier, using about a mixture of half water to half black paint, just to get the consistency right and so that it doesn't dry too fast on me. And I just brushed this on and then wiped it off using that same rag as earlier, just to get off all of the black in the high areas and to give it a really nice worn look. I then dabbed on a few shades of rust colored paint into all of the crevices and then on some of the high spots, just to give it a really nice rusty worn look like the in-game weapon has. And then I went through and stenciled on the nuclear symbol and then brushed on some yellow paint onto that. Overall, I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I really like how the rust and all the washes and everything made this look worn. I did do some dry brushing. I forgot to record that, but it was just mainly on the black areas since dry brushing doesn't really affect white areas that much. But I really like how it turned out, and it fits pretty nice in my hand as well. If you guys don't mind supporting me through Patreon so that I can continue to make these videos, you guys would get behind the scenes access and stuff, and this would help me make higher quality videos and builds as well. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys don't mind liking and subscribing, please do. Let me know what builds and stuff you guys want me to make so that I can get making them. See you guys next vid. Bye.